Ethan was just an ordinary man. He lived alone in a small cabin near the desert, far away from the busy cities. He wasn't a scientist or a soldier. He fixed aircraft for a living and spent his evenings looking at the stars through his old telescope. He had always believed that something else was out there, far beyond the sky. But he never thought that one night, his quiet life would change forever. It happened just after midnight. Ethan was outside with his telescope when he saw something strange, a bright light moving across the sky faster than any plane he had ever seen. At first, he thought it was a shooting star, but it didn't vanish. Instead, it got bigger and brighter until it suddenly dropped from the sky and crashed in the distance. A deep rumble shook the ground a few seconds later. He hesitated. Whatever it was, it had landed not too far from his cabin. The desert was quiet, and there were no signs of other people nearby. Curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed his flashlight, jumped into his truck, and drove off toward the spot. When he reached the crash site, he couldn't believe what he saw. A silver object was half buried in the sand. It wasn't shaped like any aircraft he knew. It had smooth curves, glowing lines, and strange symbols along the side. The metal looked alive, almost breathing. Smoke rose from the cracks, and small lights blinked on and off. Cautiously, he moved closer. The ship was damaged but still humming with energy. Suddenly, a panel on the side opened with a soft hiss. A figure fell out, landing in the sand with a soft cry. Ethan rushed forward. It was a woman, but she was different. Her skin had a soft silver tone that shimmered under the moonlight. Her hair flowed like liquid metal. Her eyes were large and deep, glowing faintly. She looked scared and weak. She spoke quickly in a language he couldn't understand. She tried to stand but collapsed. Without thinking, Ethan picked her up and carried her to his truck. He didn't know what he was doing, only that she needed help. He brought her back to his cabin, placed her gently on his bed, and covered her with a blanket. For the next few days, he took care of her. She slept a lot at first, and when she woke up, she still spoke in her strange language. But she slowly learned a few English words by pointing at things and repeating after Ethan. He learned her name was Zyrella. She came from a planet called Kazari, far away from Earth. She told him, through drawings and simple words, that her ship had been attacked. She had come on a peaceful mission, but someone didn't want her to reach Earth. Her ship was damaged in space and crash-landed by accident. Despite the danger, Ethan didn't tell anyone. He knew if the world found out, she'd be taken away, maybe locked up or used for experiments. He wanted to protect her. Zyrella seemed to trust him. She smiled more, tried new foods, and spent hours watching the sky with him. Zyrella's body healed quickly. Within a week, the cuts on her skin disappeared. Her movements became stronger and more graceful. She studied everything: books, tools, even the old radio in Ethan's cabin. Sometimes she would touch broken machines and they would start working again. Ethan didn't ask how. They grew close. There was something between them that didn't need words. She would sit beside him on the porch, silently watching the stars. She would draw pictures of her world and try to explain its beauty. He listened, fascinated, even if he didn't understand all of it. One night, as they sat quietly under the stars, Zyrella reached out and touched Ethan's hand. He looked at her. She didn't speak. She just smiled. A soft, warm smile that said more than words ever could. Ethan felt something shift in his heart. He didn't know what it was, but it felt right. Zyrella was no longer just a guest or a mystery. She had become a part of his world, a part of his life. Still, he knew this peace couldn't last forever. Her ship was slowly repairing itself. Small lights on it glowed brighter each day. One day it would be ready, and then she would have to leave. But for now, Ethan didn't think about that. All that mattered was the present. The quiet nights, the shared smiles, the soft laughter. In a world full of unknowns, they had found something rare, understanding, and maybe even the beginning of something deeper. Little did Ethan know, this was only the beginning. Everything was about to change. Zarella stayed longer than Ethan had expected. Her ship, though damaged, had a strange way of healing itself slowly by absorbing minerals from Earth's soil. Each day, the lights on its surface grew brighter, and the soft hum from inside became louder. Zarella often visited it in the early mornings, placing her hand on the smooth silver shell as if talking to it in silence. Ethan watched her from a distance, unsure what she was feeling. Maybe sadness, maybe something else. Even though she was not from this world, Zarella had started becoming part of Ethan's life. She helped him fix things around the cabin. She would hum soft tunes from her home planet while cleaning or cooking with him. Her favorite food was toasted bread with honey, something she said reminded her of a sweet root from Kazari. It made Ethan smile every time he saw her licking the honey from her fingers like a child trying something new. They spoke more now. Zarella had picked up English quickly. She asked Ethan about human emotions, stories, and history. Sometimes she laughed at how strange humans were. Other times she became quiet, especially when they spoke about war or pain. She didn't like violence. She told Ethan that on Kazari, emotion was controlled, but love and connection were respected deeply. Ethan told her about his lonely childhood, how he never really fit in, and how he found peace under the stars. Zarella listened carefully, always watching him with her glowing eyes that somehow made him feel safe. He had never talked this much about himself before. With her, everything felt easier. One night, while sitting on the porch, Zarella asked softly, "Do you believe two people from different worlds can feel the same heart?" Ethan looked at her, unsure how to answer. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. Instead, he whispered, "Maybe hearts don't care where we come from." They sat in silence after that, the stars above them shining brighter than usual. As the days passed, something began to grow between them. It was not just friendship or kindness, it was something deeper, something unspoken. Ethan could feel it in the way Zarella looked at him, the way she stayed close, the way her hand sometimes brushed his when they passed each other. They never talked about it directly. Maybe because they didn't know how. Maybe because they both feared what it meant. Then one rainy night, everything changed. The storm outside had knocked down the power. Lightning flashed across the sky, and thunder shook the windows. Ethan was trying to light a candle when Zarella stepped closer. Her face was soft, her silver-toned skin glowing in the candlelight. Without a word, she touched his hand. "Are you afraid?" she asked gently. Ethan shook his head. "Not of the storm." Zarella smiled. She reached up and touched his cheek, studying his face like it was something precious. Then she whispered, "On my world, when two souls share a moment, like this, it means they belong." Ethan didn't know what to say. His heart was beating fast. There was no fear, only warmth. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just looked into her eyes, and somehow they understood each other. What happened next wasn't planned. It wasn't rushed. It was quiet and tender, filled with care. Two hearts, from two very different places, had found comfort in one another. The storm outside faded into the background, forgotten. The next morning, nothing felt awkward. Zarella made tea. Ethan repaired the broken lights. They worked side by side as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Zarella became quieter in the days that followed, not distant, just thoughtful. She spent more time near the ship. She would often press her hand against her stomach and close her eyes for a long time. Ethan noticed but didn't ask. He didn't want to push, but something inside him was telling him that something was different. Then, one morning, Zarella stood in front of him with her hands folded. She looked nervous, which was rare for her. Her voice was calm, but her eyes showed emotion. "I must go soon," she said. Ethan's heart sank. The ship is ready? She nodded. Almost. In a few days, I'll leave. He tried to smile, but it was hard. I guess I always knew this would happen. Zarella stepped closer. She looked down, then met his eyes. There's something I must tell you before I go. Ethan waited, his chest tight. I carry life, she said softly. A new life. Part of me, and part of you. He blinked. She nodded. Yes. It is possible between our kinds, though rare. My people won't understand. Many will fear it. But I wanted you to know. Ethan sat down, speechless. A mix of shock, confusion, and something else filled his mind. A child. His child. With her. Zarella stepped forward and held his hand. I didn't plan this. But I do not regret it. I do not know what the future holds. But our connection, it is real. Ethan looked at her. So many thoughts filled his head. But in that moment, only one thing mattered. You're not alone, he said. Not now. Not ever. She smiled, her eyes soft with gratitude. They sat together, holding hands, watching the ship glow brighter in the distance. The stars above twinkled as if listening. And somewhere in the vast sky, a future was waiting to be written. Ethan stood at the edge of the desert, watching the silver ship rise slowly into the sky. Zarella was inside. The last thing she had said to him was, I will return, I promise. Then the ship disappeared beyond the clouds, leaving only a soft glow in the air and silence all around. Weeks passed, then months. Ethan went back to his old routine, working during the day, stargazing at night, but nothing felt the same. The cabin felt empty without Zarella's voice or her quiet laughter. Her drawings were still on the walls. Her favorite cup still sat near the sink. He missed her more than he ever thought he could. He told no one what had happened. Who would believe him? To the world, it was just another strange desert night. Only Ethan knew the truth, that somewhere out there, among the stars, was someone who carried a part of him. He waited every night, hoping for a sign. Sometimes he dreamed of her. Other times, he felt a strong pull in his heart, like something inside him was calling out across the universe. But she didn't come back. Not yet. Then, 6 months later, everything changed. One morning, the news broke everywhere. Reports came in from all over the world. A group of alien visitors had arrived in orbit above Earth. But they weren't invading. They claimed to be from a peaceful alliance called the Khazari Council, and among them was a tall, silver-skinned woman who spoke Earth's language. Ethan's heart nearly stopped when he saw her face on the screen. It was Zarella. She looked different, more official, dressed in a dark, glowing robe, her silver hair tied back, her eyes calm and focused. She was standing among other Khazari leaders, giving a speech at a large space station high above Earth. Zarella said her people had hidden from Earth for centuries, fearing war or judgment. But after her journey, she believed it was time to speak openly. Her voice was firm but kind. She spoke of peace, understanding, and connection. Then, near the end of the speech, something happened that shocked the entire world. A reporter asked her, "Why did you return to Earth? What is your purpose here?" Zarella paused, looked directly into the camera, and replied, "I am here to tell the truth. I carry life inside me, a child who belongs to both Earth and Khazari, and the father of that child is here among you." The entire room fell silent. People gasped, reporters shouted questions, and then she said his name. Ethan Miller. His hands began to shake. His name had just been broadcast to the entire world. His phone buzzed non-stop. Within hours, people were outside his home asking questions. Government officials arrived. Security surrounded his cabin. He didn't know what to say. He was still in shock. Later that day, he was taken to a private location where he would be questioned. They didn't treat him badly, but they didn't. fully trust him either. They wanted answers, so he told the truth, everything. The crash, the days they spent together, how they had grown close, and how she had returned to her people. Some believed him, others called it fantasy. But the news had already spread. Xyrella had made a public statement that couldn't be ignored, and now all eyes were on Ethan. Soon after, he was taken to the space station where Xyrella was staying. It was the first time he had ever been off Earth. The ship that carried him was quiet, clean, and fast. In just minutes, he was in orbit, surrounded by stars and metal walls that hummed with soft energy. When he entered the room, she was there. Xyrella turned and smiled. Her eyes filled with emotion as she stepped forward. She didn't say anything at first. She just took his hand and placed it gently on her stomach. It was warm, pulsing with life. A soft light glowed under her skin. Ethan felt something inside him shift. All the fear, confusion, and worry melted away. He looked into her eyes and whispered, "It's real." She nodded. "Yes, and now the whole world knows." They sat together and talked for hours. Xyrella explained that some members of the Khazari Council were angry. They believed the child was a mistake, a danger to the future, but others believed it was a miracle, a new beginning, a bridge between two very different worlds. Xyrella had returned to Earth because she refused to hide. She wanted the child to be accepted, to be safe. And she wanted Ethan to have the choice to be part of that future. "I cannot force you," she said gently, "but I hope you will stand with us." Ethan took a deep breath. This wasn't just about him anymore. It wasn't just about love or mystery. A new life had begun, a life that didn't belong to one world or the other, but both. And if he walked away, that child might grow up without ever knowing the truth. "I'm not running," Ethan said. "I want to be there, for both of you." Tears welled up in Xyrella's eyes. She leaned forward and rested her forehead against his. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the station. In that quiet space, two hearts, so different, yet so connected, promised each other something unspoken. But the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The world had seen the truth, and not everyone would accept it. Still, Ethan knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. Ethan remained on the space station for several days. It felt like living in a dream. The walls glowed softly, the air was fresh, and everything seemed peaceful. But deep inside, Ethan knew it wouldn't stay calm for long. Xyrella had risked everything by speaking out. Now everyone was watching, both on Earth and on Khazari. Xyrella was no longer just his friend or the woman he loved. She was now a representative of her planet, standing at the center of something much bigger than both of them. Every step she took, every word she spoke, was being judged. But Xyrella didn't let fear stop her. She invited Ethan to meetings with other Khazari officials. Some welcomed him with kind smiles. Others looked at him with suspicion. A few avoided him altogether. One of the council leaders, a tall figure named Scifi, stood up during a meeting and said in a cold voice, "This human child is a risk. A child made of two worlds can bring imbalance. We do not know what it will become." Xyrella stood beside Ethan and answered, "That child is part of me and part of Earth. He did not choose to be born, but he has a right to exist. We cannot fear what we do not understand." Scifi narrowed his eyes. "And what of the human? Can we trust him with something so rare?" Ethan spoke up for the first time. His voice was steady, though his heart beat fast. "I didn't ask for any of this, but I care. I care about Xyrella, and I care about the child. I will do everything I can to protect them." There was silence in the room. No one said anything for a while. Then another council member spoke softly. Perhaps this is not the end of our people. Perhaps it is a new chapter. The meetings continued for several days. News from Earth was mixed. Some humans were amazed, excited to learn that life existed beyond their planet. Others were scared, unsure how to accept something so different. Protests broke out in some cities, but in other places, people held peaceful gatherings, lighting candles and raising messages of hope. Ethan gave a short interview from the station. He didn't speak like a hero or a leader, he just spoke from the heart. "I'm just a man who met someone from another world," he said. "We didn't plan this, but it happened, and now we have a child on the way. I don't expect everyone to understand, but I hope people can choose kindness over fear." That short message was shared across the world. Some people called him brave, others called him a fool. But the truth was out now. Nothing could go back to the way it was. Meanwhile, Zyrella's pregnancy reached a critical stage. Unlike human pregnancies, Khazari births didn't happen in hospitals or homes. They used something called a life chamber, a glowing, safe pod that protected the baby as it grew, giving it the right mix of energy and care. Zyrella's chamber was set up in a private space near her room on the station. Ethan visited it every day, placing his hand on the glass and talking to the baby, even if he wasn't sure the child could hear him. One evening, Zyrella joined him there. She stood quietly beside him and said, "He reacts to your voice. He moves when you speak." Ethan looked at the glowing pod and smiled. "He's already curious, like his mother." She chuckled softly, then turned serious. "I've been called to a hearing tomorrow. Some leaders want to decide the future of our child." Ethan frowned. "They can't take him away from you." "They might try," she said, "but I won't. Let them." The next day, the hearing took place in a large circular hall. Zyrella stood before the Khazari Council. Ethan sat behind her. A translator helped Earth representatives understand what was being said, while cameras broadcasted the event to both planets. Scifi spoke first. "This is not about emotion. It is about safety. We do not know how this child will develop. What if it has abilities we cannot control? What if humans misuse it?" Zyrella stood tall. "You fear the unknown. But that is not the way of Khazari. We explore, we learn, we build bridges, not walls." She then pointed to Ethan. "He has shown me more kindness and care than many from our own world. He didn't abandon me. He didn't use me. He stood beside me when he could have walked away. And he will stand beside our child." The room was quiet. Everyone was listening. Ethan stood. His voice was calm but clear. "I don't have powers. I don't wear a uniform. I'm not a leader, but I am a father. And I will do everything I can to give this child a good life, one where he knows he is loved, accepted, and protected. I don't care what world he chooses to live on. I only care that he's safe." There was silence again. And then something unexpected happened. A small Khazari child from the back of the room stepped forward and placed a flower at Zyrella's feet. The child looked up and said, "Let him be born in peace." One by one, more children followed, placing flowers around her. The council members were moved. Scifi said nothing more. At last, the elder leader of the council stood and spoke. "We cannot change the past, but we can choose the path forward. Let this child be born under the banner of both our worlds. Let him become what he is meant to be." Zyrella turned to Ethan. Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled without worry. Their child would be allowed to live freely, without fear, without hiding. But the final step still remained: his birth. The time had finally come. Zyrella's pregnancy was reaching its most important stage. The space station was calm, but there was a quiet excitement in the air. Ethan spent most of his time by her side, feeling a mix of nervousness and hope. He couldn't believe that soon he would meet the child they had created together, a child unlike any other in the universe. The life chamber was ready. It was a glowing pod filled with soft, warm light. This special chamber would help the baby grow safely until it was strong enough to live outside. Ethan often stood beside it, placing his hand on the glass and talking softly. He told the baby stories about Earth, the blue oceans, green forests, and starry nights. He promised to be there no matter what. Zarella rested as much as she could. Her silver skin glowed softly, and her eyes shone with quiet strength. She trusted the doctors and scientists around her, but she knew the birth was not just a medical event. It was a symbol of hope and change for both their worlds. Teatro. Morning of the birth arrived. The space station was busier than usual, but Ethan only had eyes for Zarella. She was calm, but determined. The staff gently helped her settle into a special room designed for this moment. The life chamber began to hum softly as the baby prepared to enter the world. Ethan held Zarella's hand. She looked at him and smiled, giving him a small squeeze. Minutes later, a soft cry filled the room. It was the first sound the baby had made. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. He had never heard a sound so full of promise. The baby was beautiful. His skin was a delicate mix of silver and human tones, his eyes wide and curious. Doctors said he was healthy and strong. They named him Kai, meaning bridge in the Khazari language, because he was the bridge between two worlds. Ethan gently held Kai for the first time. The baby's tiny fingers wrapped around his. It was a simple touch, but it meant everything. Days passed, and Ethan and Zarella cared for Kai together. They shared stories about Earth and Khazari, teaching Kai about his unique heritage. Sometimes, Kai would reach out with his small hand, seeming to understand more than his age allowed. News of the birth spread quickly across Earth and Khazari. Many people celebrated. There were songs and stories about the child who would unite two worlds. But there were still voices of doubt and fear. Some people worried about what Kai might become. Others feared change. But Ethan and Zarella focused on love. Love for their child and for the future they hoped to build. One afternoon, Ethan took Kai outside the station's viewing deck. The Earth hung below them, a beautiful blue and green marble floating in. Space. Ethan pointed and said, "That's your home, little one, a place full of wonders." Zarella stood beside them, her eyes shining with pride. "And you will choose where you want to live, on Earth, on Khazari, or both. The choice is yours." As Kai looked down at the planet, he cooed softly, reaching for the stars beyond. It was a moment of pure hope. In the months that followed, Ethan and Zarella worked together to prepare Kai for a future where he could live freely. They traveled between worlds, learning about their cultures and histories. Kai grew stronger and smarter every day. Ethan never forgot the journey that brought them here, from the crash in the desert to this new life among the stars. He often thought about how strange and wonderful life could be. One evening, as the sun set behind Earth, Ethan looked at Zarella and said, "We did something no one thought possible. We made a family." She smiled softly. "A family that will change the universe." Their story was no longer just theirs. It belonged to everyone who dared to believe in something bigger than themselves. It was a story of courage, love, and hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light can be found. And so, Ethan, Zarella, and Kai began their new life together, walking boldly into a future where two worlds were no longer separate, but one.